got a new mug, guys. There you go. It says made for winter, and it's very big. Exactly what I love. And today I am back with my usual coffee. I've got my sugar-free caramel, and it's very nice. I got this mug for £1.40. It was on offer because it was the end of season sale sort of thing, because, you know, winter. So I gave in and bought it. I've been wanting to buy it for months. Every time I would go into Tesco, which is where I've got it, I just wanted to buy it. So I did. I gave in. But we all know I will use them. So, and other people do too. So, you know, can't complain too much, can we? So, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I am Molly and I do book content here on YouTube. And I talk I talk about and read a mixture of Christian and non-Christian books, including non-fiction as well, less often because I take my time with it, usually. Today it's time to do my wrap-up for January. And I have to say, it's been quite a shocking January, I must say, because we all know that I was talking about, you know, getting more into audiobooks. I was listening to a few of them the latter quarter or latter half of last year, in 2025, because I enjoyed listening to something in the shower, so I just continued doing that. And so, yeah, it's grown a lot from there. And I just want to apologise for this bit of hair sticking out. Anyway, I've read more listened to more audiobooks than I ever have in 1 month, this past month. Although one of them does kind of connect a little bit to December because I started it in December, but I did finish it in January, so I'm going to count that one, I think, as well. Unless I ended up counting it towards December's wrap-up, I don't really remember. But let's get into it. What I'm going to do is I am going to talk about the books I didn't get to. So if you've seen my TBR, there was only one book on my physical TBR. The rest were all ebooks. So I was going to try and read Tessa Afshar's Thief of Corinth. This is a Christian biblical fiction set in Corinth, evidently. I assume. I didn't get to this. What I ended up doing is I actually swapped out this book for an audiobook, and I'll tell you why when I get to it, because it's to do with prompts. So I didn't get to this. I haven't brought it into January, but I would like to read it at some point, obviously, because that's why I have it. But I'm not going to get to it this month, in February. So let's have a look. I'll probably do what I usually do. Most of the books will be a picture instead of a physical book, because most of them were not physical. So let's have a look. So I'm not going in any particular order, but I am just going in order of my list and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily in order of when I finish them necessarily. The first one is, but not the others. So yeah, let's get into what I read. So the first book I read / listened to, in this case and for most of these books, I listened to The Thursday Murder Club, and this book is by Richard Osman, and it is a very popular series. It's a mystery set in Britain, modern day, except obviously, if you know, it's quite a reasonably oldish series now, at least the first book is. But it's still set in the modern day, so it still counts for that one. So I listened to that on, I think it was Audible or Spotify. It doesn't matter. Anyway, either way, I listened to it and I enjoyed it. It was good. I gave it a 4-star, I think. It wasn't a particularly bad book. As I'm talking about it, I feel like I've already talked about this, but I don't remember, because I can't remember if I talked about it because it was in my vlog, or whether I talked about it because I actually not hauled it, but talked about it in my wrap up for December. Because I did finish it on the 7th of January, so, you know, it was very early on, so it's very possible I could have already talked about it. But I'm going to anyway, just in case. So, I thought it was really good. It was funny. The characters were all really, really realistic. There weren't any perfect people, which is obviously very true in life. And it did actually have quite a lot of kind of twists, but other things kept happening, other crimes kept being found out. So in the end, there was more than one culprit for different things. I'll leave that. I don't want to talk too much about it because it is sort of spoilery. But I do want to mention something that is kind of spoilery. Now, I'm not going to say names for who they were, but there is something I need to say because, especially as a Christian, you might not like what happened. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand up when I start talking about it. And when you see me put my hand down, then you'll be okay to stop skipping it. Because I don't know about timestamps. It's too numbery and technical for me. So just go by visuals. So yeah, and I'll talk about the slight spoilery sort of thing. So I'm going to put my hand up now and I'm going to say what I need to say. So, the main murder that happens in this book, the murderer gets away with it. I'm not going to tell you who it is. Like I said before I started talking about it, I'm not going to tell you who, like names. But the murderer did get away with it because basically the sleuthing group were like, oh, he's really nice, we really like him. It was just the one murder, so we'll let them get away with it. So that was their point of view, so he got away with it in the end. Now, to be fair, I don't know about the next book, so I don't know if he ends up getting apprehended in the second book or not. I have no idea. But yeah, you might have, if you're a Christian in particular, but even if you're not, you might not like that anyway. He gets away with it. I was a bit uncomfortable about that because, you know, it doesn't matter how nice you are or whether it was only once. A murder is a murder, a crime is a crime. So yeah, that was partly why I knocked it down a star. But there we go. So I think I'm done with the spoilery, so I'm going to put my hand down now. Okay, so hopefully those of you who wanted to skip the kind of spoilery bit did. And I hope those of you got the information you needed from the spoiler that I kind of did. Basically, I'm sure you've all heard what this book's about. And it's basically a group of these elderly people who live in a retirement village. They all do a Thursday murder club where they kind of solve old cases, cold cases, stuff like that for fun. And basically murder happens in real life and they decide to try and solve it. So it is very much amateur sleuthing. There is actually a police woman involved, one of the elderly people. So there is some of that sort of ability, I guess. I mean, I'm not saying you have to be in the police to have that ability, but you know what I mean. but also there are actual police involved as well. Most notably a policewoman called Donna, and also her captain or sergeant, I can't remember what his title is, but someone who's above her, basically, as well, but not as much. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I think I'll continue the series, but at least for now, I'm not fussed about spending money, really. So I do want to kind of stick to the audiobooks, or at least like a free ebook maybe, if that's a thing I can do with this series. So, what's the next book I'm going to talk about? Let's have a look. So, the next book is my last finish of the month. And this book is I actually do have this book physically. I actually, in the end, was able to buy it. Maybe I'll use it actually. Pick it up. Right, so, this month, not this month, in January, I was doing a buddy read with Anne from In Search of Wonder, and we buddy read The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. Before I talk about it, I do want to say I would definitely give Anne's video a watch where she talks about this. It's not a separate video, it's in her usual sort of Sunday vlog. She definitely, not that I didn't understand what was going on, but she definitely saw things that I didn't, so I definitely think her review is definitely a really good one and a really interesting one as well. I really enjoyed buddy reading it with Anne. Thank you so much, Anne, for buddy reading with me. And I read this on ebook, and it's really funny. Literally, at the end, not last week, but the week before, I think I was telling Anne, but I was certainly saying or thinking, oh, I really like this book. I definitely want to buy a physical copy of it at some point. Then, cut to next week, last week, but the next week, I went out with my grandma. We often look in charity shops, and you know me, I love looking at my books. And guess what I saw at a charity shop? The Historian. And I was able to get it for £1.99, so £2 for this chunker. I was so excited because it looks in really good nick. It's not really yellowy, like the pages aren't really yellowy. I don't think the spine's been bent. Not that I mind about that because I bend my paperbacks, but it's still really good. Like the pages look really nice, really good condition. If it's been read, I don't think it's been read much. Maybe only once. So it was a really brilliant find. So I'm really pleased about that. And so yeah, let's get into my review for it. So I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was brilliant. I did not get bored once, and as you can see, it's a thick book. My Kindle version was about just over 700 pages. This one, okay, it's the exact same, so it's 704 pages. I really enjoyed it. It's not quite like, no, hang on. So, firstly, this is more of a sequel, and you could say there's technically 3 timelines. One of them is 1970s, which is the present day for this book, and then there's the 1950s, which is the majority of what you are reading in this book, and then the 1930s. So, the 1930s follows our letters, which follow a professor called Professor Rossi, and he basically chronicles his experience with this book. So what you end up finding out is that these multiple people have found this weird, kind of creepy book where there's nothing written in it, but right in the middle there is a symbol of a dragon. And I think they said it was like a woodcut plate or something, I can't remember. It wasn't like just drawn on like you would on paper or anything like that. It was like a proper like carving type of thing, I think. If I'm getting that right, I'm not quite sure, I don't really know those sorts of things. But basically, the girl in the 70s is the daughter of this other historian who was a student of Ross's in the 50s. And basically, Rossi disappears after the girl's father shows him the same book that he found, which is identical, but it's a different copy. So Professor Rossi has his copy, but the girl's father, who's called Paul, also has a copy. So, and it basically chronicles their, not adventures, makes it sound a bit more whimsy than it is, but their travels, trying to find out what's going on, research. As the name suggests, it's very much about research, because this follows the more historical figure of Dracula in terms of Vlad the Impaler, or Vlad Tepes, if that's the right pronunciation, in this book. I assume that's his last name in real life too, I don't know. And basically it follows the theory that Vlad the Impaler was actually a vampire. And so basically they are partly hunting for him, and also Paul, this girl's father, is hunting for his professor. And he meets a few people along the way. There's danger, there's a little bit of creepiness. I wouldn't say it's scary for me. I would say it's along the same sorts of scary as the original Dracula by Bram Stoker. So it's not like really heavy going in that way. There's nothing graphic really. There's a little bit of like the gory stuff written in, but again, it's very few and far between. It's a big book, and it's not graphic or detailed or anything like that. I would say it is pretty clean in that respect. I don't remember there being any swearing, or if there is, there's very little. I think there have been uses of God's name in vain, though, but again, I don't remember it being loads. However, I do warn you, I do kind of just block that out. When I do that, I kind of just like skip over it, or I change it to gosh, or goodness, or Lord, or whatever might fit the sentence. Sometimes there's nothing, but either way, there's been no content like that. There's no spice. There are about 3 fake black scenes, kind of, but they're not. There's no spice leading up to them. They're brief. Literally nothing is described. Apart from one of them, I think there's mentions of the man's torso, but nothing graphic, nothing long-winded or anything like that. It was just, saying about his skin, or I think his skin shade compared to hers, because she's a little bit darker or whatever. So yeah, I would say no content in that respect, but obviously you know yourself best. So just decide what you think. It was only 3 instances in the whole book, and each one is for each different timeline. So it's not, when you think of how big this book is, and they're only brief, it's kind of like when you watch if you've watched like a age 12 movie, and it's, they're about to do it, and then it just cuts to later on, or to a different scene or whatever. It's basically like that. There's literally nothing shown or anything. So just, do what you think is best if you are interested in this. Because obviously it's a chunker, and it does ebb and flow, but in a nice way, in terms of like how fast-paced it is. And I say fast-paced quite loosely. I wouldn't say it's fast-paced. I would say it is kind of. It's because when I think of fast-paced, I think of like a fast-paced thriller, or a fast-paced fantasy where it's all just go, go, go. So when I think fast-paced, that's kind of what my brain thinks. So that's not really what this is. This is more like the slower version of that, kind of. I don't know how to describe it. But I love this book. It has a very interesting point of view. There's a lot of different things about communism, and especially in Europe, because a lot of this book takes place in different countries, places like Holland, places like Bulgaria, Istanbul, a little bit in England, but not very much. And the whole communism thing didn't apply to the England bit, as well as America. So it's mostly in Europe. So yeah, that was really interesting. It was really interesting hearing all the descriptions about the places that people went to. Yeah, it was really interesting finding out about a little bit of what life was probably like for people living in occupied countries where, you know, you couldn't practice religion, for example, or you couldn't talk against the government, stuff like that, you know, that sort of stuff. So that was really interesting. There was, I think, yeah, there was a lot of history. It's very much that sort of research, history stuff. So if you like that sort of thing, you might like this book. But the difference with this and the original Dracula by Bram Stoker is the religion aspect. So for those of you who have read the original Dracula, it's a lot more Christian than you would imagine something about vampires being, because it's very much, you know, darkness versus light. So the Christian faith and Jesus being the reason why Dracula is able to be defeated, that sort of thing. Because there's stuff like a silver cross and stuff like that. And so this does have that, but it has more of the worldly version of it in terms of it's any religion. Now, it's not every religion ever mentioned, but it kind of implies that in that respect. It's mainly following the Islamic religion in terms, and it's kind of saying that anything that is light against dark, anything religious like that, will defeat Dracula. So yes, it's very much like that. So you might not like that for that reason. I enjoyed it anyway because it's not, as far as I'm aware, Elizabeth Kostova is not a Christian, so I don't expect it. But it does also mean that some things were a bit weird. There were times where things were very conveniently coming together. So yeah, what was I saying? Religion? No. Yeah, that was it. I was talking about the coincidences. Basically, coincidences would happen where the good guys would meet fellow good guys just at the right convenient time where they just happen to be in the right place and, you know, kind of let on to each other sort of thing, where they're like, oh, hi, and end up talking and end up coming up to a very similar conversation and stuff like that. So there was a lot of very convenient things happening, which is what you expect in this sort of genre. It's because it's kind of like historical fantasy, literary sort of stuff. So there is, so obviously, you know, you do get that fantastical element because of Dracula, or Vlad the Impaler. So being a vampire, I mean. And so there are things where it kind of is weird from a non-Christian point of view in particular, but also possibly other religions, I don't know, because there's no explanation as to why they would keep meeting these people conveniently who are also good guys. Like, they've never met anyone where they think they're a good guy and they're not. Like, it's all been very, what you see is what you get. You know, when they meet someone they think they're a good guy, they are. If they meet someone they're suspicious of them, they have a right to be. So it's very convenient and stuff like that. And me and Anne were talking about this, about the coincidences, and I said to her that it would make more sense if you were looking at it from a Christian point of view and it was a Christian book, because then you could not as an excuse, but you could use God as the reasoning for it. You know, God is bringing them all together to fight evil. You know, like the Holy Spirit is leading you to this person or these people. Like, so it would make sense in that way if they were going down that road, but she didn't. So, yeah. So I know Anne thought that stuff like that was a bit, I can't remember what you said you thought about it, Anne, but anyway, overall though, I really enjoyed it. I would like to mention though, for those of you who don't like it, it is an open ending. I don't want to spoil it, but I'll just leave it at that. It's an open ending. But I loved it. I don't mind an open ending if it's something that makes sense. So stuff like vampires. Makes sense. It just makes sense to me. But yeah, that is my buddy read. So thank you again, Anne, for buddy reading with me. I really enjoyed especially hearing your opinions, because you definitely saw things that I didn't like with the communism stuff. Like, I was seeing it, but I wasn't really picking it up with words in my mind and going, oh yeah, this is communism stuff or whatever. But Anne did, and that was really helpful, because it wasn't, for me, now it could just be a me thing, could be to do with my age, I have no idea. It could be my education, or what I've forgotten, I have no idea. But I didn't necessarily get everything to do with that, apart from when we got to Bulgaria. It was very obvious in Bulgaria, the communism, and that's mainly because of the religious aspect, which I know is a very big thing with communism, especially. I'm just trying to think. I'm just going to look in my bullet journal. Not my bullet journal, the other one. My reading journal. I've been doing it, as you know. I haven't done February yet, though. Did I actually write the historian down yet? Oh, I didn't. Okay. Well, there's no point looking at that, then. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a fantastic book. She's a really great writer. I really like her work. And for a 700-page book, I did not get bogged down. I did not get slumpy. It had my attention. I was interested. I read a lot for myself. I read a lot right at the beginning because I just didn't want to stop. And so the fact that I was also able to read a 700-page book in a month, amazing. I really enjoyed it. It was really good. So, the next book on my list is American Fairy Tales by Frank L. Baum, I think, or Baum, B-A-U-M. If you don't recognise his name, he's most famous for the Wizard of Oz book, if that helps. I forgot that was his name. So when I saw the Wizard of Oz, I was like, oh, of course, right. I gave this a 4 stars. So this I used for Anne's, actually, Anne's reading the classics challenge. And obviously I'll probably go through my yearly challenges and stuff when I get to it. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It was fairy tales. There was a bit of magic to do with it. There was. But it wasn't like fantasy magic. Like, it's not like, say, a fairy tale retelling or just fairy tale or fantasy. It's very much your typical sort of children's fairy tales. It wasn't particularly dark. It's not like the Grimm brothers fairy tales. It's very much for kids. I don't know whether Frank L. Baum thought up these stories or whether he just heard them and collected them. I don't know. But I really enjoyed them for what they were. I thought they were funny. I thought they were quick. They all had meaning in them in terms of kind of living your life, you know, trying to be a good person or whatever. It definitely had that sort of learning thing that you often get with fairy tales and stuff like that for kids to learn, you know, how to exist in a society type of thing. Well, not in a society, in society. And it also reinforced those messages at the end where it would talk about, you know, this story, you know, means that if you do this, then this will happen. So make sure you know, don't do these things or whatever. And they did that for every story, and that was really good. I really liked that, especially if kids don't always pick these things up because it's all just story. So that was really good. There were some really good stories, really interesting ones. Yeah, they all had really good messages. And none of them, I don't remember any of them being particularly Christian in particular. But they all had good morals, sort of thing, either way. So I really enjoyed it. And I forgot to say, I listened to this on Audible. and I remember it was definitely Audible for this one. I saw an offer for a 3 months for 99p, so I was like, you know what, let's do it. I know that there's some stuff with AI which I also don't agree with, in terms of taking over the narrators' jobs and the actors for AI instead, but I don't know if there's anything going on with that. Like, I've not heard anything since. I don't know if it includes the UK branch of Audible, if that's even a thing. I don't know. I don't know if it tells you if it's AI either. So for now, I'm just going on with it. It's actually really helping a lot, so I'm happy sticking with it for now. But if I do find out more information, then that might change. And I'm open to that, because I know to AI, especially with stuff like that. Anyway, I don't want to get on my high horse about this. Otherwise, I'll just be here for ages repeating the exact same things. The next book that that's on my list, there we go. I do have a brain. Oh yeah, I didn't do that yet. Anyway, so the next book on my list is The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie. This was on Audible as well, and this was actually a dramatised version of the book. So it had different voice actors. It was like listening to a film, basically. So yeah, and I decided to listen to it because I saw it was Peter Dinklage, who I quite like. I've seen him in a few things, not loads, but I really like him, and he's playing Poirot. I thought the acting was good, I guess. I mean, it's all just vocals, so it's hard to really know, but it was good. The only problem is that I missed bits, so which happens anyway because I'm hard of hearing listening to an audiobook on 2 times speed. So part of it is my own fault, I do admit. However, it was worse because of it being dramatised, because there were background noises, because it's like listening to a film, and people wouldn't be talking very clearly, especially actually I found Peter Dinklage's character, you know, Poirot, because he's quite a soft-spoken character, or at least in the versions I've seen with David Suchet, quite softly spoken, and obviously he's got his Bulgarian? Is it Bulgarian? It's a Belgian accent, because obviously it sounds like French, but I remember he's not French. I just hope it is Belgian. You Agatha Christie, well, Poirot specifically, fans will be able to confirm whether he's Belgian or not, because I can't remember. I feel like he is, because I know it's very similar to French, or at least they have similar accent. Let me know. I know you especially are a big Agatha Christie fan, so I know you'll probably know, but anyone else too who really likes Agatha Christie. Either way, he was very softly spoken, Peter Dinklage, and I really struggled to hear him. And I struggled throughout. I got the gist. I got enough of it where I knew what was going on for the whole of the book, really, until the end. You know, the important bit where you find out who was doing the murders. So, like, I know bits because of connections and because of everything else that was happening in the book. But if you asked me which character it was, I'd be like, I haven't got a clue, mate. I can tell you the gender. I can tell you, you know, whether it's someone who's been a big part of the book or not. But I couldn't tell you the name. Not a clue. I could tell you they were posh. Or at least they had a posh voice. Anyway, in those days, certainly in the original sort of 1920s, a lot of them were posh speaking. But yes, so that did bring it down for me because I don't know what the ending is, really. I still gave it a decent rating because I did enjoy it. I was able to keep up with it. It was really exciting. I did give it a 4-star, but it could have been more if I actually knew what was going on at the end, unfortunately. I know there's some twists, of course, like Agatha Christie always does. Beautiful. But yeah, that is a bit of a shame. So I don't know how I feel about dramatised versions of audiobooks. I think I would have to try it again, try one again, or try the same one even, I don't know, to kind of figure out whether it was just that one or whether I just shouldn't try them. I don't know yet, but that is a shame. But there we go. I enjoyed it well enough at least. And then the next book is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. Again, audiobook on Audible. Although actually most of it I did listen to on Spotify for free, but then I ran out of hours. Of course I did. So because I wanted to finish the book before watching the film that's out at the moment, I decided to bite the bullet and just pay for the book on Audible because I'd used my credit already for this last month for January. So yeah, it was still cheaper. It was $7.99 instead of $15.99, so it was about half off. So it wasn't bad price wise, but I would have preferred not to have to buy it, but it's fine because I actually really enjoyed it. It was a 5-star. So if you don't know, Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell is a historical fiction, kind of literary historical fiction, about more the family of William Shakespeare. So if any of you know anything about Shakespeare, I don't know, he had Anne Hathaway was his wife. They had 3 children. One of them was called Hamnet, their son. And basically, it's in the book, it kind of moves back and forth between like their present day and when Anne and William met and them getting married and, you know, having their babies and stuff like that, and his work, kind of, not really, more about him leaving, not very much about him actually in London because it's not really about him. And actually throughout the whole book he's not mentioned by name, William Shakespeare, because obviously he is such a famous character that I think, if I remember rightly, Maggie O'Farrell didn't want to add that name to the book because it just adds a lot more noise and makes it, and I can imagine she'd be thinking, because I would as well, that it kind of would make it more about William Shakespeare's book instead of actually about his wife Anne and their children. So if it's not really spoilery, but you kind of feel like it is, but basically it's about when their son Hamlet dies from the plague, bubonic plague, the pestilence, as they said in the film at least, during, you know, the 1500s. So yeah, it's basically about that. It's very much a family story. It's very much slice of life sort of thing because of, you know, the getting married and having her children, stuff like that. And it's a very emotional book, especially if you've had these same experience as Anne in terms of losing a child. Now obviously, you, depending on how you have lost a child, you might be okay, or you might like it because it's cathartic. I don't know, you would have to make your own decision about that. I can't do that for you. So it does tackle grief in terms of the loss of a child, and it was very interesting because it shows the different ways people dealt with it. It shows a little bit with William Shakespeare and how he dealt with the loss of his son, or at least the theories in terms of his play Hamlet, how that might have had to be to do with his son passing away. But I think that's more of a theory, so I can't confirm or deny any of that. But certainly it goes through how they might have dealt with it at the time in terms of the grief, in the book more so than the film, because the book also goes through how his sisters dealt with the grief as well, so that was interesting. Whereas in the film it only really follows Anne and William's reactions to the grief. A little bit with Hamlet's sister, twin sister, Judith, but yeah. It was a really lovely book, definitely an emotional book. So I would say kind of trigger warnings, I guess, or just be careful if you are sensitive to anything grief related, because I've not lost a child, but I can relate to losing someone you love. So, you know, but especially if you've lost a child. So yes, I loved it. I thought it was a really good book. I did go and see the film on Sunday. Today's Tuesday, so Sunday that we just had. And I really loved the film as well. I really especially loved the ending even more than I did in the book. Because if any of you read the book and or seen the film, well, if any of you read the book and maybe even if you've seen the film, you'll know the difference and you'll know what I'm talking about. I actually really love what they did with the end of the film, because it kind of shows more about the grief with the play. So, of like the play Hamlet. So I thought that was lovely. I thought it was beautiful. I cried a lot. I cried a lot with the film, because also I knew what was coming as well. So I'm like, oh no. But anyway, yeah, very emotional film. So as well, obviously, because the book is. I do want to say that the film is a little bit more graphic than the book. Now, in certain ways. So the book does have 2 fade to black scenes, just 2, and it's between William and Anne. I was going to say Kate. No, very different people. For starters, they're alive. Anyway, William and Anne, once actually technically before they're married, unfortunately, but then one when they are married. Nothing happens on page. There's no spice leading up to it. It's literally just, oh, they're about to, I don't know, take clothes off, or they're kissing, and then it's back to the, like, afterwards or whatever. So there's nothing actually shown on page. However, the film, that's not the case. Now, you don't see any bits, but, you know, you're seeing the act. They're still basically wearing their clothes, apart from William being shirtless. But you don't see his front. But either way, it's graphic enough for it to be, I would consider it an open door scene in the film. Not the book, in the film. So just be aware of that. You only see it once. But yeah. So yeah, just be aware of that in terms of content. Other than that, with the book, there's no swearing that I remember. I don't remember the Lord's name being taken in vain either. And obviously you already know about the fade to blacks. Yeah, fade to blacks. And the fact that there's no spice involved. I really enjoyed it. I did struggle listening to it in terms of the names, because I wasn't sure what I was hearing. So when Anne was alive, she actually was called Agnes by her father, I think. And then, was it in the book? It was either in the book or in the film. It says that the author decided to use Agnes because that's what she was called by her dad, instead of Anne, which is what she's most known as. I think they were both used, but I think that was the main name or something, or her birth name on her certificate. I'm not sure if that was even a thing. But either way, and I didn't know what the narrator was saying, because I was like, is she saying Anya or Agnes? And then when I saw the film, it was Agnes, and I was like, that explains why it sounds like Agnes, because it's Agnes. So I did struggle with that, but that I think is more me, because as I have already said, I'm hard of hearing. So other than that, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lovely book, beautiful book, sad but beautiful. And actually the narrator is also the same actress who plays Agnes or Anne in the film, if that is of any interest to you. Can't remember her name. Jessie Buckley. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the film. Beautiful film. Really good. Yeah. And I have been forgetting to tell you all of the narrators for the audiobooks, apart from Agatha Christie, because I told you that's a full cast. And I told you it's Peter Dinklage who plays Poirot. I don't remember the names of the other actors. I apologise. There's too many of them for starters. I can't remember who it was for American Fairy Tales. Or for Thursday Murder Club. If I remember for American Fairy Tales, I'll write down the narrator for you. For the Thursday Murder Club, I'll also write the narrator down for you. Oh, I wanted to say for the Thursday Murder Club, there was also an extra not to do with the book. And again, I can't remember where I listened to it. I think it might have been Spotify. But either way, there was an extra bit of time where the author, Rich Dosman, was interviewed by another author whose name I did not catch because hearing. So I apologise for that. But she was a fellow author. And that was really interesting. I enjoyed that. So yeah, that's those. The next, did I finish that before? Yes, I did. Okay, so the last book that I listened to was The Odyssey by Homer and translated by Alexander Pope. Again, I can't remember who the narrator was, so I'll write that down here as well. I gave that, I'm writing it down. I forgot to write down when I finished it and my rating. That's my own fault. I want to say it was like a 4-star. So, and the reluctance is because I didn't always hear everything again. Now, I think it wasn't a dramatised version, so I know it wasn't to do with that. I think with classics in particular, a lot of the narrators, or at least when I'm listening to it on the 2x speed, I don't know about the normal 1 speed, but I struggle sometimes because there's not really any different inflections of voice. So like there's not really emotion shown. And a lot of the book, or at least from what I can tell, because it was hard to tell, there wasn't much speech. There was some, but you couldn't really tell, or at least me and my hearing, I could not tell. I got the gist of it. That's certainly true. And it was good. I thought it was good enough where I definitely think it was certainly a 4-star, maybe 3.5. But certainly probably a 4-star. And I did enjoy it. And again, I listened to that because of the film that's coming out, although I don't know when, in the UK anyway. So I unfortunately didn't realise that it's actually the sequel to the Iliad, which I am currently listening to. So I kind of read them out of order, but it's fine. Because the Iliad is basically about the fall of Troy, you know. Helen or Troy, you know, the face that launched 1,000 ships, you know, that story. So I kind of know the gist of it anyway. I know there's more to it in the book, okay? I'm not saying that's all it is. But anyway, so it didn't really affect it because both of them are kind of like epic poem, epic fantasy. So it was kind of a story, well, I mean, it was a story in itself, but it kind of didn't need to be read first. Like, you didn't need to read the Iliad first before the Odyssey necessarily. Obviously, I'm sure it would help with context, but anyway. I just missed bits. There was a lot of characters, so I kept getting confused about who we were following. I thought we were following Ulysses, but apparently the book's not about Ulysses, so now I'm just thoroughly confused. But you get some, you know, gods and goddesses from the Greek pantheon, I think is the right word. Trying to remember some of the names. Although then again, I'm not sure some of the names are the actual human queens and kings, or some of them are the gods and goddesses. Except one that I know definitely is a god, and that's Poseidon. But I mean, that's kind of obvious, isn't it? But it was really good. I enjoyed what I heard of it. But I think, like with Pride and Prejudice, I think I would like to read it physically. And either tandem read it with the audiobook or just physically in general. And obviously when I say physically, I mean either ebook or physical. I kind of say it for both, which will not be helpful, but there we go. So yes, I did enjoy that, for what I could hear of it. Yes. Oh well. It's partly me. I don't know whether it's because of the speed. I don't know whether it's just because I'm deaf. Obviously not officially completely deaf. I just mean deaf as the blanket term. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But there we go. Those are all the books that I read other than the Bible. So, Winnie from Whitney Marie Reads, she, as you probably know that if you're a regular viewer, you'll know that she was supposed to be a fellow co-host for Tinsel Tales, but she's taking a indefinite leave break from YouTube. And when I say break / indefinite leave, she might come back, but she's not sure she will, and if she does, she doesn't know when. So it's like an indefinite leave. So if you have been following her or me, you'll have known that I talked about this at the start of 2025, where she was doing a Bible monthly readathon type of thing, and it was called Give Me Jesus. I think it was called Give Me Jesus. The Give Me Jesus challenge, and that is a readathon to encourage you to read more of the Bible. And I think all of us fellow Christians all feel this way. It's never enough. You never spend enough time in it. You're always lacking in it. So I was like, I want to do this again, whether she's doing it or not. It turns out she is, but on Instagram, so that's really cool, just not on YouTube. So I was doing that. Most of the time I wasn't doing very well with it. I have done better because I doubled up. You can double up. But yes, I didn't do too badly in the end, but there we go. So I did do that as well. And I will go through what I read when I go through my yearly challenges and readathons. So that's all those. Let's get on with this then. So. Okay. So, I'm going to talk about my challenges and let's get on with it. So, the first one on my list is Chantel's Read a Bookshelf Challenge. January was to read a book that has a article in the title, which an article is either the word the, a, or an. And I picked, there was actually a few I could have used, but I decided and stuck with the historian because the. Woohoo! The next one is Caterie's Christian Fiction Challenge. I didn't complete any of those because I didn't read any Christian fiction. Obviously I read the Bible, but that's not fiction, so doesn't count. The next one was Chantel's Jurassic Reading Challenge, and that was a favourite in January, and that could be anything like an author, genre, favourite book, whatever. Now I've actually so far not done it, but I think I'm going to use the historian in terms of my favourite, I would say more genre, I guess, in terms of, like, I really like the whole history thing, research thing, especially with what I like to call alternate history. I don't know whether that's the right phrase, but in terms of things like, you know, vampires, werewolves, ghosts, that sort of thing. I don't read much of those. It depends on what it is. I do want to tell you that. But yeah. I think I might use that. I haven't posted. I meant to. Okay, as I'm filming this, because obviously by the time this is uploaded, I probably will have uploaded on Instagram by now. But I haven't actually put this book on Instagram yet. And I meant to do it weekend. You know, before February started. Maybe I'll do it later today. We'll have to see. Either way. So, the next challenge is the Reading the Classics Challenge by Anne from In Search of Wonder. For January, it was a 5-star prediction, and I decided to go with the American Fairy Tales by Frank L. Baum, because I wanted to try. doing this challenge, there's an extra thing, I guess, I never know what the right word is, but you can try, if you would like, to just do American classics. You don't have to, it could be British or, German, Russian, whatever, but if you want to, because it's about America, because she's doing the 1776 edition because of America's 250th anniversary for something, I assume independence, or it could be creation, I have no idea. Anyway, I'm trying, if I can, to do American classics, so we'll see. But I used the American fairy tales for 5-star prediction because I like fairy tales, and also, like I often say, most books are 5-star prediction. No, not most books. I always have the mindset of every book is a 5-star until I've read it and then made my mind up, because it might be a 4 or 3, etc. I like the positivity, So that was that one. The next one is the one I've done the most for, which is very interesting. So Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails is doing her yearly challenge as the Winnie the Pooh challenge, because it's Winnie the Pooh's 100th anniversary this year. So I have a few, because there's more than 12 prompts, so you can do more than one, and last year I only did 2 for each month and then finished a little bit early. I didn't do that this year. I have read about 3 books for 3 different prompts. Just not intentionally, it just ended up happening. So one, I can't remember if she said it was fine. I think she did. But one I wasn't sure about initially, but I think is fine. I think Katie said it is. And that was the prompt Christopher Robin, and that was a story with animals. And I decided to go for the American Fairy Tales book by Frank L. Baum, because obviously it's different short stories, and at least one of them, technically 2 actually, but one specifically I was thinking of actually had quite a lot of animals involved. So I used that book for that prompt. And then I'm going to have to check in my reading journal because I still don't remember. Here we go. Okay, so yeah, that one. The next one was Kanga, and that was a mood read. No? Sorry, it was Family Story. Sorry, I got confused with Tigger. Kanga is Family Story, and I used Hamnet for that one because it's very much based on the family. It's very much a family story, family oriented even. So I used that prompt. And then the next one for it was Heffalumps and Woozles, and that was a reader mystery or thriller, and I used the Thursday Murder Club for that one. Then I'm just going to continue with my my reading journal now. So the next one is Alma's Journey Through Time Historical Fiction Challenge, and for January it was to read a book set in biblical or the ancient era. And I decided, and now you'll know what I meant about Tessa. So, I originally was going to read Thief of Corinth by Tessa Afshar, because it's biblical fiction, biblical ancient era fiction, but I knew I wouldn't get to it in time, so I decided to use The Odyssey by Homer, because that is set in the ancient era, ancient Greece, so I thought, perfect, I'll use that. So that is that one. And then the next one is Oceana's Read Christian Romance, and like I said about Katri, I didn't read any Christian fiction, so I haven't completed any of Oceana's prompts. And then also Oceana was doing a read-along for Francine Rivers, and we were supposed to read Bridge to Haven. I also did not get to that one, unfortunately. And then the last challenge was the biblical reading and retelling challenge that Kat is doing from Kat's Stories, and for January the prompt was first, and that could be very open-ended. It could be the first time reading something, the first in the Old Testament, first in the New Testament, first book of the Bible you've read, like you've never read that one before yet, so you thought you'd read that, or in terms of retellings, it could be an author you've not read before, so it's a first for you. Or maybe you've never read any biblical fiction and you want to try it, so that could just generally be a first. So it's very open-ended. I think you can also use non-fiction, as in Christian non-fiction, outside of the Bible as well, I think. I just can't remember. And it's funny. Originally, I was going to use Genesis for first because it's the first book of the Bible and the first book of the Old Testament. I forgot to actually do that. So I switched to using... Oh, Pooh. I don't remember what book I used. I definitely used a book of the Bible, okay? And I can't remember what I did. It wasn't any letters. I feel like I think I used the Gospel of Matthew because generally that is put as the first Gospel and the first book of the New Testament. So I went for that. That was it, yeah. I went for the Gospel of Matthew. So that is my yearly challenges. Now it's time for the monthly readathon. And I say readathon loosely because it's to read the Bible. So this is the Give Me Jesus challenge that Whitney is doing on Instagram. And I did well. I did get a bingo. I did double up. So I read Genesis, as you guys know, and I used that for the prompt Genesis, as well as a long book. I used it for that. I don't think I used it for an Old Testament book because actually I think I used a different one for that one. I wish I remembered, but I don't. Yeah, there's no way of telling, right? Yeah, no way of telling. Terrible. Anyway, I used Genesis. I used the second letter of John in the New Testament for a short book. I also used Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, as you guys know, as one of the Gospels. And also I used it for the prompt Matthew chapter 28:19, which is right at the end of the Gospel. I can't remember what it is, but it's like, one verse of scripture. I read one bit of the Gospel of John, and that was to read the woman at the well. So I read that chapter, basically. Then I read the verse of the day on the YouVersion Bible app. I read 1 Samuel, and I used that for listening as well as an Old Testament book, I think. New Testament book. I think I might have used 2 John for the New Testament book as well. I read Psalm 23, and I also read Psalms 1 to 23 to complete the Psalm prompt and Psalm 23 specifically. I also read the book of Esther as my favourite book because I love that book. And because I read Genesis, I watched the movie Joseph, King of Dreams, I think is the title, by DreamWorks, the animation. And obviously, Story of Joseph has a movie. So I watched that one. Oh yeah, and so basically Esther was for the female main character. Although I don't remember if I ticked that off when I did it, but I meant to. Anyway, so I did quite a lot. I only got one bingo. Actually, I realised oh yeah, I also used 2 John as an epistle because it's an epistle. Although again, I can't remember if I actually put that in, but it's fine. Either way, I did a lot better than I thought I would for the Give Me Jesus challenge. So that's great. And I got 1 bingo, so I'm happy. Even more. So yeah, it made me be in the Bible more, which I'm really pleased about. Obviously with Cat Stories, Biblical Reading and Retelling Challenge, I'll be in the Bible more because of that, because I want to try and do more of the actual Bible for these prompts if I can. And maybe I'll do biblical retelling as well. It just depends on what I can get to, and also whether I want to do both. So we'll see. So that's my yearly challenges and my readathon. I don't think there's anything else. Yeah. For any of you who are interested in what translation I used for my Bible reading that I was doing, I used the King James version. This is my dad's one. My dad's Bible. So I used that for any of you who are curious. I think that's it for what I read. I read a lot of books to recount because I'm actually really curious, okay, how many books I read. So, let's have a look. Okay, so I read 6 books, including the audiobooks, so that's really cool. Oh yeah, and obviously not including the Bible. So that was really good, and most of those were audiobooks. So I read 5 audiobooks, guys. 5. Most of the time I'm only reading 1 or 1 and a bit because I went out of minutes on Spotify, and I refused to pay extra just for an extra, 15 hours or whatever it is. Ridiculous. Anyway, I already pay for Spotify, which is why I think it's ridiculous. I'm not going to pay extra to listen to audiobooks as well. I'm like, what? Anyway, so yeah, that is it for me. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I read and hearing my opinions. I don't think I have forgotten anything, I hope. For the people I have forgot to put down the narrators for the audiobooks, I will write it down for each one. And yes, I think that's it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And so everyone, how did you do for January? What did you read? Did you have any really great books that you read? Were there any really bad books? Did you do any readathons? Did you do the Give Me Jesus challenge? And how did you do with that? I'd love to know. Did you do any other readathons? I know that's what I needed to say. I know Epistolary January was happening, that Anne was doing, and her and other co-hosts. I actually read 2 books that fitted for Epistolary January. I wasn't really participating, but I technically was with this book, The Historian, because there's a lot of letters. It's mostly in letters. But I did also, in the Thursday Murder Club, it does have journal entries, so that also counts. I don't know what that one counts for, but I know for definite the Historian counts for, I think the prompt is airmail, because it takes place in other countries from where I live, mostly, so majority of it. So yeah, I just wanted to say that because I knew I'd forgotten. So I was kind of unofficially taking part in Epistolary January. But I didn't print anything off, so I don't know what the prompts are. I don't remember, apart from airmail. But I know they both will fit. So there we go. I think they're the only ones. Yeah, they're the only ones. So there we go. So yeah, let me know what you've read and your readathons, yearly challenges, favourites, not favourites. Yeah, and let me know about the Give Me Jesus challenge if you tried to join in with that. Let me know what you did. I'm really curious about that. I did better than I thought because my priority was the Historian, because big book, slow reader. So I tried to read as much as I could. And once I got to Genesis, it was very quick because a lot of them were quite short, like 2nd John. Listening to 1 Samuel was very quick because I was listening to it. Stuff like that. And obviously Esther's like 10 chapters, so it's very short. So, there were times where I could tick off quite a few quite quickly because of that. So I did better than I thought. So I would like to hear how you guys did if you took part in it. And yeah, let me know about your reads. Again, as I keep saying. So I will leave you all to it. God bless. This video is an hour and 15 minutes long. It is a feature-length film again. You are welcome. No. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. God bless. I love you all. And have a good rest of your week.